Oh,
Hold on here.
it freaked out on us.
Oh, this is
Now you're muted again. No, you're not.
okay.
I'm alive. I'm dead again. I'm alive. I'm dead
There we
again.
go. Okay,
Nope.
I'm hitting the funny thing is this is all being recorded.
Stop hitting the button.
Okay, now I'm okay.
Oh.
On the Amputated Baptist Podcast, we gather around to talk theology, politics, and the sweet banjo sound. Kevin Thompson leads the way, teacher and preacher too. With a men's quartet, the harmonies ring true. Gather around the mic, let's find our way, singing praises, strumming banjo strings all day. Amputated Baptist Podcast, where we all belong. Join the harmony, let it carry us along. With a passion for faith and a banjo by our side, we delve deep, we don't hide, we take it all in stride. From parables to politics, every topic on the table, let's harmonize together, let's make it stable. In the chord progressions we find our peace, singing praises, strumming banjo strings all day. Amputated Baptist Podcast, where we all belong. Join the harmony, let it carry us along.
Theology, politics, and a little bit of banjo. You're listening to the Amputated Baptist Podcast. And now, here is your host, the Amputated Baptist himself, Kevin Thompson.
All right, welcome back to the Amputated Baptist Podcast. I am the Amputated Baptist, Kevin Thompson, and joining us back for another week is Pastor Lee Snow. Lee, welcome back to the podcast.
How's it going? My clothes
Well, it's
didn't
been a
change
while
or
since I've
anything.
seen you. So, just right before we hit record, you just said you're sweating more than a Jehovah's Witness, wondering if he's part of the 144,000. I just wanted everyone to hear that.
Yeah, that's my go-to one.
All right. Well, last week we talked about your book, Still Here. It's a study of the book of Philippians through the lens of mental health, which again I recommend. And the book that just broke, that was just released, is Shattered Sanctuaries. Finding God Amongst the Ruins of Religious Trauma. It's a 90-day devotional, and I really feel this is a book that's needed because we experience this a lot. So Lee, I guess my first question is, what led you to write this book? Was there something in your life that just said, man, I got to do something, or are you seeing
Well,
this
a little bit
problem?
of everything. Of course, in full-time ministry, I see a lot of people that have dealt with religious trauma, and I get a lot of DMs from people on socials. Just a few months ago, we had a lady, I was talking with her on social media. She messaged me about she lives here in the area and she wants to come to church, but she had been through a lot. And I encouraged her. And then, as it is, they say, I'm going to be there Sunday. And then they don't show up.
Yeah.
But that next Sunday, I fully expected she's not going to be here. That next Sunday, I looked out in the parking lot and there was we're a small church. So when there's a new car in the parking lot, we all know that there's a new car in the parking lot. And there was a new car in the parking lot and nobody got out of it. And it just sat there running. And then church started and I preached my sermon. After the sermon, I walked to the front door and the car was gone. And I didn't know what it was. My first thought was security. What's up with this? But then I guess it was probably an hour or so later, I checked my DMs and there was a message that said, hey, I came, but I couldn't get out. So I just sat there for a minute and I left. That happens a lot more frequently than we would think.
Yeah.
And so she had been through a lot. She has been through a lot with religious trauma. And then just seeing people in my family that have dealt with it and church members that have dealt with it. And So after I released Still Here, I went into my Facebook group, the Back Pew Collective. Shameless plug.
Mm,
We got like almost 11,000 people in there. Anyways,
mm.
I went in there and I said, I'm working on my next book projects and kind of planning stuff out. What would y'all like to see? And the number one was religious trauma and or church hurt. And so I said, well, I've actually been thinking about that, and so I put together. It's 13 weeks. It works out to be 91 days. But it goes through the book of Second Corinthians,
Yeah.
and it is aimed at people who have experienced church trauma. Now, the issue that I face with writing it is that everyone's church trauma is different,
Right.
and Second Corinthians is not specifically written about church trauma, but there is insights into toxic church environments,
Yeah.
toxic leadership environments, that sort of thing in the book. And so I'm fully aware that somebody who's dealt with religious trauma or church hurt reads Shattered Sanctuaries, and some of the days don't really line up with what they've experienced. That's
Yeah.
kind of what I went for. I also think that people who haven't experienced it should study Second Corinthians with that in mind, because then you get a little bit more insight into what that person has dealt with or how that person is thinking. But also the person that, I experienced this specific type of church hurt or trauma or whatever, and maybe day 42 doesn't, or day 43 doesn't line up with what I've experienced. That's okay. You can understand it, so that if you ever meet someone who has experienced that, you can help them, just like, they can help you on days that they've not experienced things, or they have, and you need help with it too. So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of, I understand that not every day is going to apply specifically to anyone's setting, but hopefully people will read all of them so they get a better insight into other people,
Yeah.
and get a better insight to see red flags about when something is
Right.
has
That's
a
what I was just
potential
thinking
to
about.
hurting someone. And like, dude, listen, in full-time ministry, you're going to upset people, you're going to hurt people.
Yeah.
We try our very best not to, but it's just a reality of the way the world we live in, that I can try as hard as I possibly can to not induce any kind of church related trauma to someone, but I will never get that 100%.
Yeah.
And I understand that, and hopefully everyone in ministry understand. I know they
Right.
don't, but hopefully they will one day, I guess.
Yeah. And this is helpful. Even if you have, like, I've been through bad church situations, but I don't believe I have church hurt, so to speak. I've been blessed in that way. In fact, there have been, I'm the kid that, the church, I could say the church saved my life. And I'm thankful for that. That's why the local church to me is so important. But I also have to recognize that's not everybody's testimony.
Yeah.
And when that new visitor walks in the door, they may have been revving themselves up for this moment. This may be the most difficult thing they do for the rest of the week.
For sure.
After, and I've heard horror stories after horror stories, and it's that. But one of the things I think going through this, and I haven't read this all 90 days yet, 91 days. But
It's only been out 4 days, so I would hope you
right.
hadn't read all 90.
So, but I think one of the things this could be used for is also just you mentioned red flags, and I appreciate that. There are people who are looking for churches, and we can see here what to look for or what to be careful of. I think the other thing is, as a church leader, I could read this through and think, am I guilty of any of this?
Yeah.
Am I?
And you got to give yourself some grace too, because like I said, we're going to
Right.
hurt people. At some point, you're going to make a mistake. You are not perfect. And if you are, it's nice to meet you, Jesus. I've been trying to meet you for a long time. So you're not perfect. I even writing the book, like, oh man, I've done that. I know that I've done that. Um, you got to give yourself a little bit of grace in that. I think one thing in ministry that's the hardest is when someone falls away or someone disappears or someone has a massive, massive problem in their life. It's really easy for us to say, I should have done more. This might be a
Yeah.
little bit of my fault. And in reality, you probably should have done more, and it might be a little bit of your fault, or it might be all your fault. But it's done now. So
Right.
ask for forgiveness, repent, and try not to do it again. You know,
Yeah.
We can't beat ourselves up about
Right.
our failures in ministry because I've been preaching now for 17 years. If I were going to write a book about my failures in ministry, it's going to be a big book.
Yeah.
So.
So, all right, people are reading through this, and I appreciate, again, you're just like your other book, you're grounding this in scripture. This is not just here's my sage advice, but you're trying to go to the scriptures, and the answer is not just deconstruction. The answer is not
Yeah.
just throwing away the church. I tell people, I have adopted 4 kids from foster care, and their home situation was terrible. And by God's grace, my wife and I were able to bring them out of that and give them a better life. But the answer to their problem was not just not to have parents or not to have a home. There are good churches out there, but it may take some time. You need to heal, and people need to be cognizant of that. That if you've gone through some of these situations, and let me bring this up. You hear the objection all the time that, well, church hurt means that you don't want to deal with your sin, right? That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's I don't want to deal with someone else's sin because they're being a dingus and I just can't handle it.
That's a Greek term.
Yeah, it's a Greek term. It means idiot. No. But yeah, listen, sometimes the religious trauma that we face is because we've done something that is sinful, but the people around us didn't react in a way that was overall helpful. And so it's then our responsibility to try to make that right on our end. And it's the people's responsibility to try to learn how to deal with those situations,
Right.
so that we don't have a situation of sin that compounds to religious trauma of some sort. And then that person deconstructs, and we've already broken the trust that they had in the church and in scriptures and in faith. And then we wonder why people deconstruct and they don't look for the right answers. Deconstruction overall, I believe, is a good thing. If we are deconstructing our faith so that we can find the true answers.
Right.
But the problem is when someone starts to deconstruct their faith, to ask these questions about their faith.
Yeah.
And we, as the church, have broken their trust in us. And therefore, sadly, when someone loses trust in the people, then it's very easy for them to lose trust in scriptures and in faith in general. We have had a part in breaking that. And then we wonder why they deconstruct and they don't look for the right answers.
Right.
They just question everything and they listen to everyone else because we've destroyed the trust that should be there for them to come to us to say what's going on,
So I think a lot of the advice you gave last week, sit down, shut up, and listen. Apply here as well.
I'm just going to write a book that's called "Sit Down, Shut Up, and Listen."
Yes, and I want an
it's actually I'm gonna type that in my notes right here. That's actually pretty good. Don't you dare steal my book ideas, people.
Okay,
all right.
I do want credit somewhere in the foreword or the introduction. The Amputated Baptist gave me this idea. No,
all right, I will.
One of the things I love about my job is I teach teenagers. I'm a Bible teacher. And I tell these kids, listen, deconstruction, as you said, I don't think deconstruction is a bad thing. You're all at a point where you should be questioning things.
Yeah.
You're at a point where you have to question, I've been forced to go to church all my life. I'm forced to go to this Christian school. But what do I believe? And I need to search the scriptures for myself. And I tell kids all the time when at lunchtime, I see a kid come in, sneak in my room. And it's at that point where I can say, okay, listen, do you want to talk about your porn addiction, or do you want to talk about your doubts in the faith? And
Yeah.
it's one of those things that, yeah, people struggle
Most of
with.
the time, the doubts in the faith come because of the addiction.
Yeah.
But, you know, and
And
also, like, I think we've got to do a better job of realizing that and I think we talked about this in the last part too, but that our journey is not the same as everybody else's.
right, right.
So
Yeah, absolutely. And so this I think this book is going to help people, and whether you've gone through church, and maybe this will help you recognize that you might be going through church hurt at the time, and you
yeah,
don't understand it, but it also defines what we're talking about, and you don't let people off the hook here. You do recommend people to search their own hearts and see,
yeah,
what did I contribute something to this, or am I um,
yeah.
making
I didn't. I set aside, or I set down to write it with the overarching thing was I don't want to diminish someone's sin, because honestly, sometimes our religious, like we talked about, our religious trauma comes from us doing something that was sinful, and the people around us didn't react in a way that they should have reacted.
Yeah,
And I don't want to diminish that at the same time, but I also want to challenge everyone. And so what it is uh, I suggest you start the book on a Monday. Okay. That's why the book dropped on a Monday, and it is set up to start on Mondays. Okay. So if you buy the book, wait until the next Monday to start it, because every seventh day when Sunday lines up, there is not a devotional. There's basically a section that's just, if you feel comfortable and if you feel strong enough to go to church, here's what I want you to think about while you do. If you
yeah,
aren't to the point where you can go to church yet, here's something that I want you to focus on while you don't go to church. Sometimes the worst place for a person to be when they've experienced church trauma is just try to go to church and act like it never happened. Sometimes the best thing for
right.
them to do is take a little bit off. And
Yeah,
I know Hebrews 10:25 says that we should not forsake the assembling of ourselves together. I don't believe that's forsaking. I believe that is setting myself up so that when I can go to church, I am ready to actually do it.
right,
Jesus calls us to worship in spirit and in truth. That means do the right things, truth, for the right reasons and with the right heart, spirit. Well, if you come into this building on Sunday and you sit over there on that pew and you sit like a bump in a log and you're not actually worshiping, the better place for you to have been was at home watching Oprah drinking sweet tea.
yeah,
Um, it's, Jesus talks about Tyre. It's worse for the people in Samaria than Tyre and Sidon, because they had a concept, right? I think it was Samaria. Was it Samaria?
yeah,
I don't remember. But it's worse for them because they had a concept of the truth and they didn't follow it. Sitting in a building, and even like Paul says, if you have a problem with a brother, leave your gift at the altar and go make it right. That means put your money in the plate and then go make it right, and don't worship until it's made right.
yeah,
Sometimes the best place for a person to be is not at church. And I know
right.
that sounds counterproductive, but I'm not all about just putting butts in seats. I'm trying to help people
Yeah.
get to heaven. And
Years ago, I had visited a church. I was looking for a church. I stopped at this little Baptist church in the area. I'll say, because I don't want to give away the church. The
yeah,
pastor
you
was
can't put
gone.
people on blast.
And the pastor was gone. So I came in. I finally found where it was a weird. This church is weirdly set up. I finally found the auditorium. Nobody was there. I sat down, and this woman came in, elderly woman, shouted at me, "Are you a visitor? We don't get visitors at our church." Why? I found out why.
There's a
Um,
reason why. Yeah.
but they were praising this woman who had just died. She had died of cancer, and she had been a member of that church for years and years and years. And they were praising her because every Sunday, though she was in great pain, though she was writhing with the pain of the cancer she was going through, she still sat in that pew. And all I could think is, man, if she skipped a couple Sundays, she might still be here.
Well, I mean, there's something to be said about that, but
when people are sick, and then
Yeah.
I think this about church hurt, sometimes you need to skip a Sunday or two. You need to
Yeah.
heal up. So
or
that
maybe
you can
even longer.
participate.
I don't know what
Yeah.
you've been through, man. Maybe I need to take a year off and just focus on myself. That is not the same as the person saying, I get my church in the deer woods or on
Right, right.
that's not, you're just looking for an excuse. Buck up, buttercup, and go to church.
Yeah.
But the person that genuinely needs a break to get it together and think through these things and deconstruct, because also I come from a restoration mindset of I think the religious world in America today is laughably bad. I think everyone needs to deconstruct and get rid of the man-made garbage and just go back to the scriptures and follow them. And sometimes, in order to do that, we've got to step back and look at ourselves and look at our faith and look at the church and say, is this a congregation that is healthy for me to be in? Not every congregation is for every person.
Yeah.
That a congregation may be perfect for one person and be the best place for them to be. And for another person, it could be the worst place for them to be.
Yeah.
So just because the church building's a half mile down the road and it's the first church I passed, that doesn't mean that that's the place you need to be right now.
Right. So the book, again, I want to make sure, Shattered Sanctuaries, Finding God Amidst the Ruins of Religious Trauma. Go out and buy this book. Buy two. Buy one for a friend.
And I'll give you a little heads up. You might notice that the first book is, well, I did a devotional, but it's trash, so don't read it. But all three of the books that I published and the two that I actually like, I think I might actually take that devotional down. They start with the letter S. It's because I got OCD and ADHD. And so all of the books that I publish will start with the letter S because my last name starts with the letter S. That might be prideful, but I thought it was funny, and it's like a little inside joke for myself.
Shut up and listen.
Yeah, exactly. It starts with an S, But yeah, it's like an inside joke for me that all of my books start with S. So
wow. All right. Well, hey, go on Amazon right now before that devotional is taken down.
Don't buy that garbage. I'm taking it down as soon as we get done with this.
All right.
It's horrible.
Well, Lee, again, the book Shattering Sanctuary is available on Amazon. We'll have a link to that in our show notes. We'll have a link to all Lee's social media. If you're not subscribed on social media, you need to. It's what makes TikTok worth having. So you should use that in a promotional.
I will. I don't
anyway,
know
Lee,
where,
thank you.
but
Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy, and
Thanks for having me.
appreciate the time you have here.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, everyone else, check out, again, amputatedbaptist.com, and we'll have all of that info there. You can check out all of our websites and check out Lee's podcast, but only when you're done with this one. When you're caught up, then you have permission to go check out. Lee, what was, again, the title of your podcast?
The Back Pew Pod.
The Back Pew Pod.
Yeah.
Check that out. Check out all 4 episodes, and then come back to the Amputated Baptist. All right. So until next week, have a good rest of your
Praises, strumming banjo strings all day. Amputated Baptist podcast where we all belong. Join the harmony, let it carry us along.